the Synthesizer Addict.
Hello, my name is Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
And I've got mail. I have viewer mail. So you know what? We're going to make this a regular segment in the Synthesizer Addict where I read your emails to me. That's right, you can reach me at thesynthesizeraddict@gmail.com, as well as finding me at Facebook, facebook.com/thesynthesizeraddict, and Twitter @synth_addict. You can reach me on Gmail, and if you send me a decent email, I will read it on air and I will answer it on air. So, Paul writes, very cool first video. Well, thank you, Paul. That is much appreciated. Thanks for posting an email link. Just getting into music myself. Kind of lost at the moment. Spent a bunch of money on an Akai MIDI controller that was packed with a bunch of soft synths that just didn't really jump out at me. As well, I bought an Arturia out of strong interest for the nostalgic type of synths, hence my studio. Cool. Then I noticed hardware sound was night and day, so I'm looking around and come across the Korg mini log and accidentally stumbled onto the Blofeld, both in the entry-level price, though I'd love to have a lineup like yours. Again, thank you. Would like to ask how long you've had the Blofeld, comments on the learning curve and overall usability regarding to menu diving. So let me stop right there and let me answer that question straight away. So I've had the Blofeld for about probably a year and a half, and I found it incredibly intuitive right from the get-go. But don't take my word for it. My son was 8 years old at the time, and he was able to dive right in and immediately start making sounds of his own. So now he didn't quite grasp all the parameters, but the fact that an 8-year-old was able to dive in and immediately access the parameters that he wanted to access and create some new sounds from scratch, I mean, I think that says something. So some folks might complain about having to menu dive in the Blofeld. I don't really get it. I think that it's pretty quick to get from point A to point B. Of course it would be nice to have dedicated knobs for everything, but I mean, there's so much. The Blofeld is such a deep synthesizer that I think it would be next to impossible to have a dedicated knob for everything. So I think it's pretty easy to get around. My only real complaint, and you'll hear this quite a bit, is the fact that where the data entry knobs are positioned, it's kind of it doesn't really work for right-handed keyboard players. So for lefties it's fine, but for righties you're kind of crossing over quite a bit, and then you're kind of covering up the screen as you're adjusting parameters. So, and you guys have probably even noticed that in my first couple videos where I'm sort of crossing over and I'm trying desperately not to cover up the screen while I'm adjusting parameters. So that it's a flaw of the Blofeld, but yeah, at the end of the day, is it really that big of a deal? No, it's not a deal breaker as far as I'm concerned. So let me go on. I'm sold on the sound. I'm just hesitant about the reviews, mostly consistent with firmware crashes and encoder knob failures. Lack of support from Waldorf makes me nervous. I'm hoping this thing will carry itself for many years if I decide to buy. Have you had any trouble with the unit at all? Well, funny. So if you had asked me that question a week ago, I would say no, absolutely no problems. I've run into no bugs. It's been rock solid for me. But in the making of my last video, if you guys, my last video just came out. If you had a chance to check it out, you'll see at the end I mentioned how my Blofeld crashed. So I was, as I was recording a track using this new sound that we created in the last episode, recording was no problem, but during the playback of just this one particular sound, for whatever reason, it just kept crashing. It crashed in different places during the playback each time, which I thought was odd. So I don't think it was something unusual about the MIDI that I'd recorded. Sometimes maybe if you record something with a lot of polyphonic pressure, it makes a very dense MIDI file, and sometimes certain machines can't handle that. But I don't think that was the case here, because again, it was crashing in different places during playback each time. So that's the only problem that I've run into in the year and a half that I've had it. Up until that point, it's been rock solid for me. I think that they've ironed out quite a few of the bugs. I mean, the Blofeld's been around for what, 10 years? Something like that. It's actually surprising that in these days when things go, synthesizers go to market for a couple of years and then poof, they disappear and they get upgraded or what have you, and you don't see or hear from them again. The Blofeld's been around and has presumably been a pretty good seller for Waldorf for the better part of a decade. So I think they've ironed out a lot of the bugs that were originally in the Waldorf firmware. Obviously, there are still some bugs there. It's been 2 years since they came out with the latest available firmware update. I don't know if I'd hold my breath that they're going to come out with another version. Uh, they'll still certainly support it. I have not had to call or email them for support, so I can't really speak to that experience. You know, I think your mileage may vary with that. It's difficult to go by what you read online because certain people, they'll post stuff about these horrible experiences when maybe they didn't really follow the right channels to get support, maybe they didn't call the right numbers, maybe they weren't particularly patient, maybe they couldn't understand the person on the other end of the phone, which is a distinct possibility. This is a German company that makes these synthesizers, and who knows where their support is located. Could be Germany, could be India, could be the United States, who knows. Like I said, I've never had to call, so I don't know what the support experience is like. But that said, the product has been around for quite a while. There's a pretty large community of users, so I think even if Waldorf support fails you, I think that somebody in the user community would probably be able to help you out if you run into some sort of issue with your board. So, I don't know. That's been my experience. This is, the whole point of this channel is to try to develop a community of synthesizer addicts. So if any of you have had other experiences with the Blofeld, positive or negative, specifically with their support organization, please chime in the comments below, or Facebook or Twitter, or send me an email and I'll read it on I'll read it on the show in the next viewer mail episode. So let's continue. So have you had any trouble with the unit at all? I just talked about that. 1,000 patches is great, but you have to overwrite each time you create your own. Do I understand that correctly? Well, yes. So these, it comes with a whole bunch of patches on board. Some of them are better than others. I wouldn't stress out about having to overwrite the onboard ones to create your own. What I do is, for the small handful of built-in patches that I like, I'll just skip over those when I'm creating new sounds. But you'll find that there are just so many sounds, and A, you're not going to want to keep all of them, and B, even if you do accidentally get rid of one that you want to go back to later, these sound banks are all available online. You can download them and re-upload them into your Blofeld at a later time. So it's really not the end of the world if you have to overwrite things. And again, you're going to have, there's so many slots for sounds and so many sounds on board that are just a whole lot of nothing. You're not going to want to keep them anyway. So, it's really, as far as I'm concerned, it's a non-issue. And with the Blofeld, you're certainly better off than with a lot of with a lot of the synthesizers that I have in here, for example, where, maybe if you're lucky if you get 32 or 64 sounds. So then you're constantly saving things off to a sysx file and, dumping things from a sysx and reloading and so on and so forth. You'll never run into that issue with the Blofeld, as far as I'm concerned. So let's go on here. Is the upgrade for opening up 60 megabytes of wavetable space and using the software worth it? What benefit does it really offer? So I can't speak firsthand to that. I do not have the 60 megabyte upgrade on mine. So what I will say is, don't expect that if you get that upgrade, that you're going to be able to upload large, gorgeous sample sets to this thing and have, for example, a beautifully multi-sampled grand piano sound on here. It's just, that's really not what it's for. It's for, having a different base for some of your sounds. If you want to get more creative beyond the wavetables that are built in, use some of your own samples, for example, or use some sample sets that you find on the internet, and use those as a basis for, and honestly, since I haven't used it, I'm not sure if it works, if it's just a single sample or if you can create your own wavetable out of various samples. See, I don't know. I don't have experience with that. But I would not expect it to be like, like the Yamaha Montage, this beautifully multi-sampled thing. 60 megabytes is really not a lot of space. So, yeah, my recommendation would be, if you're going to go with the desktop module, I would say don't get the upgrade at first. Get comfortable using the built-in, pulse, sawtooth, triangle sine waves, and the several dozen wavetables that are built in, I think you should go and exhaust your own possibilities with what you can do with those first. And then if you find that you've kind of hit a brick wall, you're sort of at a limit as to what your creativity is allowing you with those restrictions, then yeah, go ahead and drop the $100 or $200, whatever it is, to turn on the sample functionality. And again, I can't speak to the software, so I don't know if the software is any good. I have heard that it's very slow. So I think you're kind of uploading samples at MIDI line speed, which is 19,200 kilobits, if I remember correctly. So it's slow, and it will take hours to upload a full 60 megabytes of samples. So be aware of that. But again, my recommendation would be to start off with, especially if you're just getting into synthesis, don't bother with the samples for now. If you want a sampler, get yourself a free VST sampler for now and use that. So let's see what else he has to write. Hoping you'll do a lot more Blofeld in the future. Well, episode 2 is an entire episode dedicated to the Blofeld, and that's going to be it for a while. Even this is kind of pushing the limits of what I want to do Blofeld related, but I really appreciated the email, so I wanted to get to it. Right away. Hoping you'll do a lot more Blofeld in the future, but your entire setup is quite impressive. Thank you. Any feedback greatly appreciated, and looking forward to your next round of videos. Cheers, Paul. Well, Paul, thank you very much for the viewer mail, and to all you out there, please don't hesitate to write me, and I may choose to read your email on this show. So guys, I think that's it. You take care. See ya.